Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, guys, so this comes straight from, I believe it is Scientology.com. This is from the Scientology Handbook, Tools for Life. So it's public knowledge. Allowing children to work. This is how the mind control starts. For good mind control to work, you have to start breaking down basic values and boundaries immediately. And what I've also noticed is that the first thing brand new Scientologist families do a lot is sell their business or sell their home and go to Los Angeles, or it could be, depending upon where they are, it could be East Grinstead, it could be somewhere in Australia. But that is to help the mind control take root. Okay? Allowing children to work. The basic difficulty with all juvenile delinquency is a one-time, apparently humane program of forbidding children to labor in any way. Yeah, because, F the labor laws, right? Doubtless, it was once a fact that child labor was abused. Still is. The children were worked too hard, that their growths were stunted, and that they were, in general, used. It is highly doubtful in the infamous Mr. Marx. Oh, what a great reference. Ever saw in America young boys being pulled off machines, dead from work, and thrown onto dump heaps. Where there was an abuse of this matter, there was a public outcry against it. Yeah. And legislation was enacted to prevent children from working. Well, how about that? This legislation, with all the good intention of the world, is, however, directly responsible for juvenile delinquency. You guys, so if you don't put your 4 or 5-year-old to work, that's going to cause your child to become a juvenile delinquent. Convicted felon L. Ron Hubbard would probably know about that, wouldn't he? Forbidding children to work, and particularly forbidding teenagers to make their own way, because, children need to make their own way, right? In the world and earn their own money, because, parents shouldn't have to support the children they bring into the world, should they? Creates a family difficulty so that it becomes almost impossible to raise a family. Because, L. Ron Hubbard, how many wives did he have? Like 3 or 4. And he also was bigamous in, I believe, 2 marriages. Had a total of 7 children on record. To my knowledge, he was never really there for his children and quite abusive. So, take advice from someone like him. Almost impossible to raise a family, and creates as well, and particularly a state of mind in the teenager, that the world does not want him. No, Scientology does that. And he has already lost his game before he has begun it. Then with something like universal military training staring him in the face so that he dare not start a career, he is, of course, thrust into a deep sympathy, state of disinterest below apathy. No, that would be you, L. Ron Hubbard, since you didn't make it in the Navy. You were substandard and a low-life scumbag, and your officers couldn't stand you. And so far, I haven't been able to find a real DD-214 form on your low-life scumbag butt. The universal military training staring him in the face so that he dare not start a career. He is, of course, thrust into a deep sympathy, state of disinterest below apathy, on the subject of work, and when he at length is faced with the necessity of making his own way in the world, he rises into an apathy and does nothing about it at all. Because heaven forbid a child would be a child, right? It is highly supportive of the fact that our greatest citizens worked, usually when they were quite young, in the Anglo-American civilization. Can I put my finger in my mouth right now? The highest level of endeavor was achieved by boys who, from the age of 12 on farms, had their own duties and had a definite place in the world. That's not even remotely close to what is going on in Scientology. It's disgusting to me that he would even compare young boys working on a farm with what they're doing to these kids. You know what, L. Ron Hubbard? Fuck all the way off. It is highly supportive of this fact that our greatest citizens worked, usually when they were quite young, in the Anglo-American civilization. Oh, okay, sorry, I read that. Children in the main are quite willing to work. Oh, are they now? Did you work when you were a little boy, L. Ron Hubbard? Or were you just like super entitled and just giving your way everywhere you turned? A 2, 3, 4-year-old child, listen to this, guys, in case nobody understands, a 2-year-old, LAPD, a 3-year-old, LAPD, a 4-year-old child is usually found haunting his father. Haunting his father? Really? That's what children do? They haunt their father or her mother trying to help out, either with tools or dust rags. And the kind parent who is really fond of the children responds in the reasonable and long ago normal manner of being patient enough to let the child actually assist. A child so permitted then develops the idea that his presence and activity is desired, and he quite calmly sets about a career of accomplishment. Really? Because every 2-year-old should have a career of accomplishment? Like you did, Hubbard? Complete flunky loser? Con artist? That didn't even make it in the Navy? Told people to brush your teeth, but clearly you never did? The child who is warped or pressed into some career but is not permitted to assist in those early years is convinced that he is not wanted. Oh, really now? That the world has no part of him, and later on he will come into very definite difficulties regarding work. However, the child who at 3 or 4 wants to work in this modern society is discouraged. Yeah, there's all kinds of laws against it, and it's a hazard, and it's child abuse, child exploitation, child neglect, physical abuse. A child so permitted then develops the idea that his presence and activity is desired. Oh, so are you telling me, Hubbard, you know, the black teeth Hubbard, are you telling me that a 2 and 3-year-old needs to have his presence and activity desired only through work? Is that what you're saying? That he needs to make his own way? Coming from some kind of loser scumbag that you never made your own way? You just use slaves? Slave labor and mind control? And later on, he will come into very definite difficulties regarding work. However, the child who at 3 or 4 wants to work in this modern society is discouraged and actually prevented from working. And after he's made to be idle until 7, 8, or 9, is suddenly saddled with certain chores. LAPD, aren't you guys glad that you get paid through child labor? I mean, thank God that the Scientologists have their 2 and 3-year-olds in there working so you guys can get your overtime pay, right? I mean, whatever it is you guys buy with that overtime pay, I hope it's worth it. Because 2, 3, and 4-year-olds are working for you to have it. The child who is warped or pressed into some career, but is not permitted to assist in those early years, is convinced that he is not wanted. Oh, really? that the world has no part of him. And later on, he will come into very definite difficulties regarding work. Wait, I'm sorry, you guys, I reread it. Now this child is already educated into the fact that he must not work, and so the idea of work is a sphere where he knows he does not belong, and so he always feels uncomfortable in performing various activities. Later on in his teens, he is actively prevented from getting to sort of a job, which will permit him to buy the clothes and treats for his friends. Well, they still can't do that, because you know why? Hubbard, Blacktooth, con artists that you are, they're not able to do that on $47 of that fake voluntary pay, because guess what? Child labor is actually against the law in most countries. So we see what you did. You tried to get around it and say that the children were volunteering. Well, guess what? $47 doesn't buy treats, nor does it buy clothes for the teenager, which he feels are demanded of him, and so he begins to feel he is not a part of the society. Oh, no, you did that. Not being part of the society, he is then against the society and desires nothing but destructive activities. Well, you would know, wouldn't you, Hubbard? Okay, guys, I'm going to put the link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. And have a good day or a night wherever you are. Peace.